Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and we are back again live. And we'd like to thank you for giving us your time. As we often and always say, that time is the most precious commodity, and there's a limited supply of it with each and every one of us. So make sure when you give your time, you get equal or greater value for that. And don't get fleeced out of your time, because once it's gone, you can never get it back. Okay, let's get into the show. I mean, the world is spiraling out of control, and it's mostly because of the arrogance of the West, the hypocrisy of the West is on display for the entire world to see. Sometimes it's hard to fathom unless you sit down and you actually watch her policies, her moves after her policies. Like, remember when America blew up the gas pipeline, and remember the West wanted to put it on Russia, but they couldn't put it on Russia. Well, we're going to revisit that. Okay, we're going to revisit that because it's very important that we revisit that. Okay, and everybody was pointing the finger, oh, blah 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 blah, and the Western governments were kind of hesitant to blame Russia due to the fact that more people had been informed that Russia had nothing to do with it. But also, the West understood that, man, it would be hard to explain that Russia blew up their own pipeline that was in their interest and in the interest of their economy, taking in more money. So after that fell through for the U.S. and the West, they pushed it on the back burner. But we're going to revisit that because it's very important that we do revisit that. Okay. All of this stuff really is pushing the world closer and closer and closer and closer to war. Okay. We're going to read an article that came out on rt.com. Okay. We're going to read that article and we'll see what they are saying about the situation that is unfolding, especially when it comes to the pipelines. Okay. Now, I know that I had clips up here. I played clips for you about the pipelines and everything. But as I talk to you, I want to show you the situation from the looking back on it. Okay. I'm going to replay a clip that talked about the destruction of the pipeline. Remember how Poland said, "Thank you, America, for blowing up the pipelines," right? And then quickly, the former Polish foreign minister and defense minister took back their words. He had spoken too soon before everything went into play, and the EU had thanked or text the U.S. saying it's been done. And ask yourself, well, what has been done? The destruction of the last, well, it's another pipeline, but the strategic pipeline that was going to give Germany strategic freedom, economic freedom, because they would be receiving cheap gas without having to worry about the gas being funneled through Ukraine or being funneled through other areas. Okay, this was a pipeline directly to Germany. Very important about that. Okay, so we're going to revisit that as we watch the world go into a tailspin of war, collapse, feudalism, and poverty, because that's what we're watching in real time. Okay, we are watching this in real time. So let's revisit this. Okay, pay close attention.
With regard to Nord Stream 2, we continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
As you know, energy is the cash cow that enables these kinds of military deployments. So Putin needs the energy to flow as much as the consumers need it. But more broadly, we have been counseling Europe for almost a decade now to reduce its dependence on Russian energy.
Today, we are also dealing with an act of sabotage. We do not know the details of what happened yet, but we can clearly see that it is an act of sabotage, an act that probably marks the next stage in the escalation of the situation we are dealing with in Ukraine.
The Washington Post got right to it. Putin, they declared, is now weaponizing the Nord Stream pipelines. According to the Canadian ambassador to the UN, Vladimir Putin has decided to use, quote, pollution as an act of war.
As you all know, these pipelines weren't pumping gas into Europe at this time. NS2 was never operational, as you guys know. NS1 has not been operational for weeks because Putin has weaponized energy, and we have said this many times before. This just drives home the importance of our efforts to work together to get alternative gas supplies to Europe and to support efforts to reduce gas consumption and accelerate true energy independence by moving to clean energy economy.
But we should tell you that, maybe not coincidentally, today a brand new pipeline was unveiled, a pipeline that carries non-Russian natural gas in roughly the same area as Nord Streams 1 and 2. This is called the Baltic Pipe. It was inaugurated in Poland. It will carry natural gas from Norway through Denmark to Poland and other countries nearby. And it's likely to do very well since now it has less competition.
So, well, that's a lot to unpack, right? And why am I playing that? What does it have to do with right now and today? Well, first, we have to understand the language that is being spoken by the megalomaniacs, by the berserkers. They continue to say Putin weaponized natural gas and natural resources. Now, let's just forget that for a minute and let's just use an analogy. If you, or say if I come through your house uninvited, I kick in your door and you shoot me, who is the victim and who is the aggressor? Just because I got shot doesn't mean I'm the victim, right? I'm the aggressor because I came on your property, into your place that you own, without being invited, without announcing myself, and with guns on me to try to take what you have. So even if I'm shot, that does not make me the victim. It makes me the aggressor. And what the victim did was use the means at his disposal to rebuff my infringement upon his house's security. Okay? This is very important. This is something that you have to understand. So now, they say Putin weaponized hydrocarbons. They say Putin weaponized gas in the pipelines. But they don't say that America and Europe sanctioned Putin. If I slap you, if nobody's looking, and then they just so happen to turn this way and see you slap me back, they would think that you were the aggressor and that you hit me. They would not understand that I provoked the situation. And to the unsuspecting minds, you're the aggressor, right? But to the informed ones who caught whiff of that, they would say, no. That was in retaliation for what he did, right? That's common sense, isn't it? Okay, so you armed Ukraine to the teeth. You trained them NATO standards. You put U.S. training facilities, NATO training facilities and bases all across Ukraine. You had them killing native Russian speakers who were left in the Ukraine and parts of the former Russian territory after the breakup of the Soviet Union in the Donbass. You empowered Nazis to go into a government, to take over, to burn a building with people in the building, massacring people, right? And you set up a doctrine that won't allow freedom of thought or difference of opinion, and all that is permitted is anti-Russian. And it's on my border, mind you, 8 to 10,000 miles away from your border. And on top of that, you have sanctioned me, you have sanctioned my oil, you've sanctioned my gas, you've sanctioned my trade, you've taken away any possibility of me getting shipping insurance from the so-called world leaders in the shipping insurance, right? And you're putting pressure on everybody that I have economic relations with. And you openly say, we want to bring Russia to its knees, all the while building a base, a naval facility on the Sea of Azov, which is only bordered by Ukraine and Russia. Now, you hit me so many times, and I withstood your blows. And I hit you hard, and now you're whining that I hit you back in response. You make that make sense. So Putin is the one weaponizing. Well, let's see what the definition of weaponized mean, okay? Because remember, when they are talking, when these megalomaniacs, these sociopaths, these psychotic minds are talking, you must understand the language in which they are speaking. The word weaponize, according to the dictionary, means adapt for use as a weapon. What are sanctions? Sanctions is to interfere. They are to interfere with domestic and foreign policies of nations that you don't like. It is to cause division, disagreement, and anger in those nations, to overthrow the legitimate government of those nations, or to sideline them, or to bring them to their knees. What is that called? That is called weaponization. You have the world reserve currency, and whenever somebody does something that you don't like, you use the Fed to spike interest rates or bring them low in order to cause change in the money cycle, or the value of the money in these nations, which sometimes causes violent revolutions. What is that called? Weaponization, right? Isn't that what you're doing? Not only to Russia, but around the globe. And yet you want to cry and moan about Putin weaponizing oil or gas? Make this make sense. See, in the mind of a lunatic, in the mind of a narcissist, they can only see what makes them look good. And they will use any and everybody and everything to fulfill their stated goals and to accomplish a set outcome that they deem is beneficial to themselves, regardless to whom it may hurt. This is what we deal with every day when we're dealing with Western politicians. This is what we deal with every day when we're dealing with Western governments. They don't know how to be agreeable. They don't know how to carry out true diplomacy. They don't know how to instigate and promote and push win-win situations. It's I'm the king, I'm the dominant factor, therefore you must submit to me. And if you don't submit to me, I'll use every instrument at my disposal to demonize you, to victimize you, to exploit you, and if necessary, to make war on you. If you think that I'm lying, all you have to do is get the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Confessions of an Economic Hitman, written by one who would know, because he was an economic hitman for the Western world and the corporations. And even he admitted that the governments are in bed with the corporations. So if the governments are in bed with the corporations, according to the definition of fascism, is that not fascism? When corporate and government power merge, when government and corporate power, the interest meets, Is that not fascism? And what is fascism according to the dictionary of Nazi, the definition of Nazism? Fascism is one component of Nazism, according to what we knew and what we went through yesterday. Is that not right? So when we get this understanding, then we can understand more. This is why it doesn't bother America, Great Britain, or the West to double cross their own dealings when they have demonized and slandered. I wouldn't say slandered, but demonized and outright banned Nazism to flip the script 180 degrees and now promote. I'm getting something in. Hold on, and then promote a different viewpoint. Hold on 1 second. Let me invite. Rashid is saying that he can't get through on this stream. Let's see. One JVT. Okay, I see what it is. Okay. Give me 1 second with you all, okay? I'm trying to and you also hear a lot of noise in the background, but that is us handling some business. This was an impromptu show. There's so much going on that I felt that I had to just come before you all and do this show, because there's so much going on today that is absolutely ridiculous, that we don't have the wherewithal in ourselves to see what's going on, or to demand that they level with us and be honest with us. Do you not understand the ramifications of these arrogant and racist and exceptional policies? Do you not see that we're one step closer to thermonuclear war? Do you not understand that these people care for nothing but total domination in their policies? Bear witness to that. Do you understand? Most people don't understand this, but they're going to understand it soon. Hold on 1 second. Let me send Rashid the new link. I just want to send out a fresh link to him, because it seems as though they may have removed the link from it. Okay, let's see if that'll work. Now, according to, we went to the dictionary and we found the definition, which was the word weaponize. And weaponize means to adapt for use as a weapon, exploit for the purpose of attacking. Listen to this good. Exploit for the purpose of attacking a person or a group, and we add in there a nation, or for spreading discord. So who actually has weaponized things at their disposal? America weaponized Ukraine. America weaponized Georgia. America tried to overthrow the government in Kazakhstan. She started trying to do a revolution in Kyrgyzstan, right? All of these underbelly positions of the Russian Federation. She tried to stoke tensions between former President Dmitry Medvedev and current President Vladimir Putin. She has now stoked tensions between Russia and Europe, which is AKA NATO. And she's trying to stoke tensions between Africa and Russia, China and Russia, Asia and Russia, Latin America and Russia. And she's using the dollar. She's trying to bribe. She's trying to threaten other nations. She's trying to pass laws which would make it a crime in America. Listen to me good. The extrajudicial thinking of America. I'm going to pass these laws, which are laws in America, and I'm going to bind the rest of the world to follow them or else. These extrajudicial laws that America requires everybody else in the world to follow. They're not. Venezuela is not American territory. China is not American territory. African nations are not American territory. The Middle Eastern nations are not American territory. So why should they be forced to follow America's line of thought? If America thinks that Russia is an issue for her, let America deal with Russia head on, like men and women do. If I have a problem with you, I'm not going to beat around the bush with it. I'm going to confront you on the problem, and I'm going to talk to you as a man should talk to another man, not in a threatening manner, but in a strong, powerful manner to let you know, listen, you are violating my space. You are violating my territory. You are violating my personal and national security. Now, here are the options. Either you stop doing that, or else these can be the ramifications of that. That's not threatening you. That's me coming to you and telling you that, look, you have violated in so many ways, and I've yet to react, but now you have gone to the brink. And if you don't pull back, then there will be ramifications that you will be responsible for and that you will have to deal with. That is how men are supposed to deal with men. Governments are supposed to deal with government. Women are supposed to deal with women. Not just beat around the bush, backstab, undercut, and all this that American foreign policy and Western foreign policy is all about. And then you get pissed with me for telling you, listen, you are violated. Now, Russia is almost at that point. Rashid is finally in the booth. I'm going to bring him in just a second. So, with that said, we go back to the word weaponizing, because remember, Victoria Nuland and also the Polish foreign minister or I forget what position he had, and the White House spokesperson said that Putin was weaponizing Russian gas and carbon and commodities, right? So we understand that according to the word weaponize, it means to adapt for use as a weapon, to exploit for the purpose of attacking a person or a group, or for spreading discord. Now, remember when we said projection? Remember that? The word projection? Well, let's see what projection means, okay? Give me a second. The meaning of projection. Give me 1 second. All right. Let's see. Okay, here it is. The presentation of an image or on a surface, especially on a movie screen. So what America does is present to you their view of something, even though it is their actions and the policies that they carry out. They then put it on somebody else and demonize them, even though you can see it with your eyes that it is America. Projection. So they are projecting what they are doing on Russia and the rest of the world that they don't agree with. Because as Rashid often say, and I follow suit on this, that they have been in power so long that they don't want an equal partnership. Now they don't even want a junior partnership. They want complete domination, and they want you as vassals. And if you are not willing to be a vassal, then they will use the dollar to weaponize the economy. They will use trade and sanctions to weaponize against you, to bring your government to its knees or to collapse the nation. And if that is not enough, if you're not strong enough militarily, then they will then use the military to go in there and to forcibly remove you from power. Let me bring Rashid in and let him add his 2 cents on this position of how the U.S. is saying that Russia has weaponized carbohydrates, hydrocarbons. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Go ahead. Hold on 1 second.
Same old
I'm
thing.
somebody to move something for me around here because the light is. You see, I have the light specs, but it's still blinding me. If you see in the glasses, you'll see it's still blinding me, and I'm having them. I'm a little distracted. I'm having to move stuff around. So if you hear any noise, this is what's going on in the background. All right, forgive me for that. Go ahead, Rashid.
Same old thing. Double speak. Same old thing. Say one thing, do another. He's a master at that. Saying one thing and doing another. He's just a master at it. America has no peers in double speak and hypocrisy. You know. I sent a text around the other day, a few minutes ago. I mean, a couple hours ago with this Indian saying, "How dare you sit up there and tell me that we are what we are doing in India when you went to Iraq, you killed over 8,000 citizens in the first 2 months." This does, it's always put the victim as the criminal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're a criminal, the people that you prey on, you always want to demonize them. And this is exactly what America's doing. You know, she is the one that, when the Soviet Union fell, NATO was not, what, they had 16 countries. Now they got 30, right up next to Russia's border. What you expect the Russians to do? Sit back and let you come walk right on in and destroy them? They ain't that stupid. They know that, and the American elite knows that. Only one who don't know that is the pure sheeple that the MSN or the mainstream media put out. You know, what they said, the people in America are so dumb that most of them couldn't even find Ukraine on a map. But they believe whatever they put out, right?
Yeah.
Whatever they put out, they believe.
Yeah. And so I was, before you joined us, I had played, I wanted to revisit a few things. So I played a clip. You remember when the Nord Stream 2 was blown up, and how the Polish person would say, "Thank you, America," and how Victoria Nuland was talking about they would bring it to a halt, and how Joe Biden says, "Believe me, if such and such happens, we'll do this." And so I brought that back up for a specific reason. Now, today, this has been reported, says Russia didn't blow up gas pipeline. Why did they wait so long? Why did they wait so long, the Western world, to admit that it was not Russia who blew up the pipeline, when we all knew that Russia was the greatest beneficiary? Russia and Germany would be the two greatest beneficiaries of the pipeline. Now, in law enforcement, if there's a crime committed, they motive, opportunity, right? And who benefits? They look at those three. So we know the motive because we played it. We know who benefits the most, and we know who had the opportunity. So we knew that excluded Russia, but we knew that America and NATO were the great beneficiaries of it. So why did they wait so long to admit something that was so obvious? And they buried it for weeks and months, not even talking about it anymore, when their excuses for Russia being the culprit had been dismissed by even the most ignorant of people, saying that this doesn't make sense to me. So look, and I want you to hold that thought, what you're saying, because I'm gonna read a part of this, and then I'm gonna give you the floor to explain what you're getting ready to say, plus some more. It says this right here. Moscow was not behind the undersea sabotage in September 2022. Matthias Warnig believes, this is the guy who's head over the Nord Stream thing. He says Russia is unlikely to be behind an attack last September on the Nord Stream gas pipelines, according to Matthias Warnig, Nord Stream 8 AG and Nord Stream 2 AG, two Swiss-based companies operating the undersea Russian gas pipelines. Warnig, who is said to have long-standing personal ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin, spoke to Germany Die Zeit, whatever magazine. But check this out. Why did they feel the need in saying that, okay, the head of the Nord Stream 1 and 2 said Russia didn't do it, but then they felt the need to point out that he may know Vladimir Putin. They were admitting one thing and discrediting him all in the while, because he's a puppet of Putin. You know, I mean, these people are insane. What's your thought on the whole fiasco?
Well, first of all Russia had to do is turn off the pipeline. It's just like when you go at your house. You don't pay your bill, the gas company come up and turn it off. Then you can't get anything. So why would they spend all them billions of dollars and blow the thing? It makes no sense. And it shows you that anybody that go for this stuff, it got a couple of screw looses upstairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for the MSN, Russia did it. Russia, that's them bots that's paid by the empire. You know, the empire is the sign of guys that tell you, don't believe your eyes, believe me, or you're gonna believe me or your lying eyes. That's the way they feel about
I
everybody.
always say that.
Everybody's a fool. You can tell them any old thing and they'll go for it. Once again, they've been ruling for so long. They can't conceive of anybody else taking their spot. And that's what they're seeing. They're seeing that the other countries have got together. Remember what we said about South America. Brazil and Argentina are getting together. They said they're going to invite Venezuela and other nations to have a Latin American currency. Asia, with China, Russia, Iran, and they want to have put out a currency. The BRICS want to put out a currency. So who is being left out? The empire.
That's right.
And her minions. You know, she run around thinking that the world is against everyone. Well, her world is shrinking. And she ain't gonna have nothing left. If everyone stops accepting her dollar, her country is gone. Right. Money is gone. It's really worth nothing. See, this is what people don't understand. Iran and Russia ain't got no money, but they got all the gold, oil, and natural resources. You don't have none of that, but yet and still you rich. Does that make sense?
That's what I constantly ask people. Do you sit down and just think about these things now? According to and what we were just talking about America's policies. Now I want you to see the arrogance. And this sometimes, man, it's so mind blowing that I have to sit back and I say, really, you know, sometimes I'm like, sometimes I talk to my wife and I'm like, did you just hear what they just said? And my wife is like, no way, no flipping way. I said, think about that. Now, the reason I brought that up is because Victoria Nuland, you remember the one that said F the EU? Remember her? The one that said F the EU, the one who instituted and pushed that money to fund the Maidan in 2014. Do you remember her? Well, she was on the video clip talking about that they would sanction Russia and they would cut off Russia's money when the pipeline exploded or whatever. Now, these people, I mean, they live in a bubble because it seems like reality doesn't matter to them. Article comes out. This is the headline of the article. Nuland reveals what Russia must do for sanctions relief. Now, listen to this. We all know that Russia's economy is booming. They have no shortages on their shelves. They have records amount of inflow of revenues from oil and gas sales and hydrocarbons and all those other commodities. Russia is their currency, the ruble, is the strongest it's been in decades, and their debt to GDP level is the lowest of I think of all nations. So America, her official debt is almost $32 trillion, with roughly a quadrillion or so that that's unaccounted for. Massive unemployment, ballooning homelessness with drug epidemics, a healthcare system that is breaking down, an educational system that is breaking down. She has alienated allies and enemies alike, and she is now facing the greatest debt crisis and greatest debt burden that any nation on the planet has ever faced in the history of the world. And she says that as though America is the most prosperous nation on earth, she says that this is what Russia must do for sanctions relief. Could you believe? I mean, I told you, it's like Bizarro World. Up is down and down is up.
Well, it took a while for Russia to realize, once again, her currency is worth nothing. Russia is broke. She ain't got anything. Well, what do you have? Well, I got some dollar bills that I done printed up that got no value at it at all. Even with Russia selling all of her currency, like I said before, Paul Craig Roberts was saying that, and he was the assistant secretary of the treasurer under Ronnie Reagan. And what he said was, in Russia they use rubles. if you go to Russia, anything you buy in Russia will have to be converted into rubles. So why would I have money? You got money, and I got money. So why should I accept your money over my money? Your money is worth nothing. Mine is getting ready to be backed by. Didn't he say that before, that they was backing it by gold, China,
gold
and Russia,
and commodities.
And commodities. Your money ain't. You got no commodities. You got no gold, and you ain't got no oil. But your money is over my money. So the smart thing to do is just stop accepting his money, and then he died on the vine.
Well, guess what?
This is the reason why you're having so much trouble, because the rest of the empire, that everybody leaving her. And once everybody hold her dollars, she can sanction that. That sanction you can't use any of my dollars. Well, if I'm not using your dollars, then what hold do you have? I can go and do what I want to. It's what me and you had been saying this for years. They should have a Eurasian, like the euro has a euro. They should have a Eurasian currency that they control, and everybody in Asia use that currency and kick the dollar back across the Pacific Ocean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then America won't be dictating nothing.
So what we're going to see is a lot of influx of terrorism in Africa again. And the reason I say this is because of what was stated today. And Russia is visiting more African nations. And what the ambassador said, that Russia and Africa are working together for a cross-border settlement payment plan, almost like a intercontinental alternative to the dollar. And so the question was asked, it says this: the proposed BRICS single currency, BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The proposed BRICS single currency may facilitate transactions between Russia and Africa in the quest for a multipolar world in which countries are free to implement the economic model they consider appropriate without external pressure, the Russian ambassador said. Experts and diplomats from Russia and South Africa met on January 25th, right? It says at the Valday Discussion Club in the Russian capital to discuss ways to strengthen ties in the new geopolitical context. During the meeting, Oleg Azarov, ambassador at large of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and head of the Secretariat of the Russian African Partnership Forum, said that alternative currencies to the dollar will be used to maintain the pace of trade relations between Russia and Africa. We already know very well which currency we will not use in our relations with Africa, and that is the dollar. Ozarov told Sputnik, this opens many possibilities for us, such as the use of national currencies, the yuan, and the currency that is being discussed by the BRICS. Now, he revealed that. Now, I want some people to understand something. This took place in Russia, right? At the same time, Russia has sent Foreign Minister Lavrov to Africa. So, and remember, this takes place at the same time that China, Russia, and South Africa are conducting naval war games off the coast of South Africa. These things are not compartmentalized. These things are to show resolve against U.S. interference, dollar hegemony, and American threats against these nations. What say you on the matter?
The same. Don't forget, Iran, Argentina. Who is the rest of them that's joining the BRICS?
Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Venezuela, a couple Caribbean nations.
You see,
Turkey.
their pool of nations are doing like this, while the dollar is doing like this.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you got all the trouble. It's because no one wants to use her worthless dollars anymore. If he had a little tact and intelligence, she's exposing herself as a paper tiger. She knew that she ain't got no gold or nothing like this. And when she did this deal with Russia, stole Russia's money. The people say, well, now it's the rush to get out of her dollar. Remember, everything that's happening to her, she's bringing it on her own self.
Right.
Her own bought troubles. She is the one that started this. And she is the one that's bringing her currency down. Without the world, what did Jim Carrey say? Without reserve,
I'm gonna play that. I'll play that for you right now. We'll get that quote exactly. I'll play it for you right now, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Let me play it. Let me find
her currency
it real quick,
is doomed.
Yeah, here it is. This is what Rashid is talking about right here.
Are you kidding me? The United States is going to start sanctioning our allies and their banks and their businesses because we walked away from a deal, and we're going to force them to do what we want them to do even though they agreed to the deal we came to? Are you kidding? That is a recipe quickly, my friends, for them to walk away from Ukraine, where they are already very dicey and ready to say, well, we've done our bit. They were ready, in many cases, to say, well, we're the ones paying the price for your sanctions. It was Obama who went out and actually put together a sanctions regime that had an impact. I went to China. We persuaded China, don't buy more oil. We persuaded India and other countries to step back. Can you imagine trying to sanction them after persuading them to put in place sanctions to bring Iran to the negotiating table? And when they have not only come to the table, but they made a deal, we turn around and nix the deal and then tell them you're going to have to obey our rules on the sanctions anyway. That is a recipe very quickly, my friends, business people here, for the American dollar to cease to be the reserve currency of the world, which is already bubbling out there.
So it's already bubbling. Before we comment on this, let me follow that up with this is like a 7-minute clip, because I want to come behind that with what the South African people with who was that? The South African foreign minister had to say about America and Europe. But I want to play this clip right here with China. Here it is. 1 second before you say that. Remember, this clip that he just played was several years ago.
Chinese President Xi Jinping says his country would work to buy oil and gas in the yuan, a move that supports Beijing's goal to establish its currency internationally. Xi says Beijing will also make full use of the Shanghai Petroleum and Natural Gas Exchange as a platform for oil and gas trade with the yuan. He made the remarks in Saudi Arabia, where he is attending a number of regional summits. China is the third largest trading entity in the world, behind only the United States and the European Union. Beijing has been encouraging partners to use yuan in bilateral trade in a de-dollarization push. Digby James Wren is a political commentator and joins us now. Digby, welcome. What's your initial thoughts on this China in Saudi Arabia, advanced talks on avoiding the use of the petrodollar, and could this perhaps even extend to other OPEC members?
Well, the first thing to say is this is a very consequential shift in global markets. It makes sense, and as you mentioned in your introduction, the Shanghai Commodities Exchange is a key part of that, and that's taken quite a few years to set up. You cannot have this kind of exchange in yuan directly for energy if you don't have commodity markets established. So that was the first or one of the steps that needed to be taken. But it also shows that for the Saudis and for the BRICS nations, for example, and also for the members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that there's a definite shift in the global south. The Americans have really undermined their own reputation because they've been weaponizing the use of the dollar. And so, of course, that accelerated the need or the requirement of other countries to not to stop using the dollar, but to start using the yuan and the euro much more. So a kind of a tripartite, sort of three currencies, which I like to call the yes arrangement. So yuan, euro, and dollar. So this is a stabilization of the global financial and commodities markets. So not overly reliant on the United States dollar, and of course subject to US domestic fiscal and monetary policy, which impacts negatively on other major economies and emerging economies globally.
Right, and why do you think the shift, Digby, I mean, in Saudi Arabia, which used to widely rely on the United States for its security, for example, security guarantees that the Washington has pledged, why is it now shifting towards China and the East?
Well, obviously, when the Saudis were told, when they didn't support Biden's attempt to control the oil and energy markets in the wake of the special military operations in the Ukraine and the bombing of Nord Stream 2, for example, or the destruction of Nord Stream 2, Americans immediately threatened to stop supplying weapons to the Saudis and to have some kind of coercive effect with their weapons sales to the Saudis. And of course, the dollars need to be recycled, or currency needs to be recycled. So if you're buying your petrol in dollars, and then the Saudis were using those dollars to invest in the American economy and to buy weapons in dollars, etc., and then the Americans have destabilized that arrangement, and the Saudis realized, and just as many others have realized, that they can't, the United States is no longer a completely stable and reliable partner, and that China is a much more stable and reliable partner in many ways, and it's their largest client. They sell more oil and energy to China than they do to anybody else. I think that's 20% of all of their exports. Energy exports go to China, so it makes complete sense to do that trade in yuan, and then those yuans are going to be recycled into manufactured goods and investments in China, because China is still going to be growing and become quite possibly the largest economy in the world. It's very close to that now, and so that currency needs to be recycled back into the Chinese economy. And the same is true, of course, for euros. It's going to be recycled back into the European economy because the Saudis are also selling more energy to Europe.
Which would make these single markets even larger. And then just finally, it's not just China, Digby. I mean, we're seeing India, Russia, Iran, many others also talking about trading in their own currencies. Essentially, yes, that would affect the US dollar as a prominent currency in the global economy. What consequences would that mean for Washington?
Well, it's going to make it more difficult for Washington to a number of things. The first thing is it's going to decrease Washington's ability to fund its foreign policy objectives and its internal domestic quantitative easing, for example, on borrowed money. So in other words, because the dollar has been the reserve currency, the United States has been able to freely borrow money very, very easily for a very long time. And so with enormous debt, they've been able to fund all of their foreign policy and domestic policy objectives. That's going to be severely curtailed and they're sort of constrained, if you like. And the Americans are going to really have to just start paying for things. And that's going to be very difficult as they go into recession. And of course, for the BRICS countries, so for example, Russia and India and Brazil, they too now will be able to have access to using their own currencies so this Saudi action has opened that door for the BRICS nations. And I think what we see here is that the BRICS is really a good counterbalance to the G7 now in terms of economy, and this is going to help those countries grow further, and those countries, as we all know, are leading countries in the global south. And so what we really see here is a complete restructuring of the global economy, and America having a less important role and therefore less able to interfere in the affairs of other countries.
Okay, Mr. Digby James Wren, thank you very much indeed. Mr. Wren is a political commentator joining us live out of the capital of Cambodia.
So let me say this, and I want to also apologize to Rashid. I didn't hit the play button. I had the mouse hovering over the thing, and in the midst of you talking, it clicked on it. And I apologize to you. I didn't mean to do that. That actually happened on accident. But I want to say this. I want to go to something because I want to play a few clips, and I want Rashid to expound on some of the stuff that are in the clips. But first, I want to preface the clips with this from the South African foreign minister. And the South African foreign minister says this, and this took place in a meeting with the U.S. So they didn't do it on TV, and they were not next to the U.S. They did it right next to the U.S. And this is what it was said. There has been a sense of paternalistic bullying from some of our partners in Europe and elsewhere. The elsewhere is America. Do it or you'll see, meaning they're saying do what we say or we're going to do this to you. South African foreign minister Naledi Pandor said during a joint press conference with her U.S. counterpart Anthony Blinken in August. On January 23rd, during a visit to South Africa, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov praised South Africa's resistance to pressure from countries hostile to Russia. We highly appreciate and respect the position of all of our partners who, in such situations, are not guided by the orders of former colonial powers and those who want to exercise dominance, but by their legitimate national interests. This is what Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said. Now, on that note, before I go to the clips, I want Rashid to respond because I know he had something to say. Go ahead, Rashid.
I don't want to forget about the first, when you play the clips, I'll forget about what I'm thinking.
Go ahead.
Right now. Well, first of all, this guy that just on press TV, he made a wrong statement.
Yes, I know about the blocks, the trading blocks. Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is the euro. The BRICS don't want to use the euro,
right?
Because the euro is the dollar.
But he also made a mistake at the beginning when he said that China is the third largest trading partner, and he said behind the U.S. and Europe. When it's absolutely
he always got to keep his people on top, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, China manufactures everything. Europe is deindustrializing with the with not having any gas going there, and America don't do. Only thing America got is selling burgers. So how in the hell can he have the largest economy in the world when he got no gold, no cobalt, no aluminum, no fertilizer, nothing? But yet still he got I'm the greatest. Hell, it's a facade to even listen to what they got. The mainstream media is becoming unwatchable with these talking heads just lying from one lie, and then they got the nerve enough to call that guy. What's the guy in Congress? The one that would we don't even really know his own real name, Santos.
Oh yeah,
they got nerve enough to talk about that guy as a liar.
But this is America. Well, I want to follow up, and I wanted to give Rashid that opportunity to finish his statement. That's why I allowed him to continue on, because again, I inadvertently hovered the mouse over the clip, and sometimes it just clicks, and it clicked, in the middle of Rashid's statement, and I did not mean to cut him off when he was talking, and I apologize. But let's go to the next clip here, because it talks about the gold. And listen to what this guy has to say.
I'm warned about that.
So let's connect the dots, Willem, to the central bank gold buying that we're seeing. We haven't seen this much happen since the 80s. They bought 400 metric tons in the September quarter. One of the world's top gold buying central banks, Uzbekistan, says it has reversed plans to buy debt, and now there's hardly such a thing as too much bullion. They want more and more gold. So, yeah, what's this telling us? I mean, are the central banks, if they're hoarding all this gold, buying records amount of gold, what are they preparing for? What do they know that we don't?
Well, I think it's a move away from paper assets to hard assets. We've been discussing this for the last few years. Remember Bill Gross, the founder of PIMCO, he said in an interview last year that bonds are investment garbage now. So we've seen that Russia stopped buying treasuries, China stopped buying treasuries, Japan stopped buying treasuries. So there's a huge problem there. And if you don't want to buy any more bonds, if you don't want to invest in more paper assets, then it's very attractive to buy hard assets. And the hardest assets of all is, of course, physical gold. So if you're a central banker, you can print money and use that money not to buy US shares like the Swiss National Bank have been doing, but to buy physical gold. That looks like a very good strategy. And actually, all countries east of Germany have been growing their gold reserves in a massive way. And I think this has something to do with the possibility that we could see a gold revaluation, a dollar devaluation, as being part of this monetary reset thesis. And more signs are pointing towards that. So if you know gold revaluation is coming, what's best to do is to position yourself and add to your gold reserves.
So it's a big panic out of the dollar and out of the euro into, you see, they said that these central banks in Asia had done a reverse. They were planning on buying more debt, what debt? Western debt. And they did a reverse about it and said, we don't want any more debt. We want to buy gold, and we cannot have enough gold. This goes back to something about South Africa and the BRICS. Okay, I have to bring this up. And one reason why South Africa has not buckled under the pressure of the U.S. And turning against Russia. Here, let me finish reading part of this article, and then we'll go back to a clip that we played a few days ago, and it'll show you something. And it says, Razigan Maharaj, a founding director of the South African Institute for Economic Research on Innovation at the Swain University of Technology, I think that's the way, I might be butchering it, but I'm doing my best, said that his country recognizes the role of the Russian people in liberating the country from the institutionalized racism and apartheid. Beginning in the 1960s, South Africa was able to count on the USSR's support in the struggle against apartheid, which was offered unconditionally. This is still very much appreciated by the peoples of our region. And it goes and it says this right here, as I scroll down a little bit, it says, political coordination between Pretoria, which is the capital of South Africa, and Moscow at the state level remains fine-tuned as the Ukrainian conflict approaches its first year. Russia stands together with South Africa in this historical context, not only for the common past of struggle against racism and self-determination of peoples, but also for our common vision of the future, Ambassador Ozarov said. We want a listen, this coming from South Africa. We want a multipolar world in which countries are free to implement the economic model they see fit without external pressure. Now, with that being said, let us go to the clip that we played last week. I mean, a few days ago. Here we are.
I believe the bill should really be killed. Because I think it's totally unwarranted. I think it's an intrusion that goes against international law, and we've made this clear to our colleagues in the United States. We even met with the drafter of the initial legislation and indicated the offense with which we view this particular proposed piece of legislation.
It's called the Malign Russian Activities in Africa Act, what we in Africa call the Anti-Africa Bill. And those were the words that have been used by several commentators to describe exactly what happened last year in the House of Representatives in the United States. The bill got an overwhelming majority support in Congress. In fact, it was bipartisan, winning by some 419 votes to 9, and it was passed through. But the interesting part is what happened to that bill, as it was likely seen to be going through its way to the Senate. And then Cyril Ramaphosa had a working visit to the United States, and he and his foreign minister, Dr. Naledi Pandor, poured it squarely to the Americans that this is an anti-Africa bill, that they cannot force Africans to choose, that Africans have a right to determine their own development and determine their own partners. We have been lamenting that bill ever since it came, and before that trip by Cyril Ramaphosa late last year in November, it was said by some of the officials in the White House that President Joe Biden will take as much time as possible to delay this bill, to make sure that it never ends up on his desk, to possibly try and stop it within the Senate. But it really looks at anybody who is potentially making friendships with Russia. And South Africa has a vested interest, especially when it comes to Russia as part of the BRICS membership. And South Africa has been really keen to really leverage on some of the memberships that you find within BRICS to make them cover issues that are rather continent-wide. They've continuously encouraged the Chinese to invest more on the continent, and they continuously look towards Russia as part of the military fortification of South African army. And here is Naledi Pandor speaking about what they hope to bring as part of their chairmanship, which they took over just at the beginning of this year, the chairmanship of BRICS, which they will be holding until the end of the year.
We're very thrilled that the progressive character of the forum has been recognized and that many countries wish to be part of it, because there is concern in the world about a changing geopolitics and almost a unipolar framework where one or two regions or countries wish to be dominant in terms of ideology and political thought. So the fact that there are countries, especially in the developing world, that have recognized that BRICS offers an alternative, because we don't force ideas on anyone. We discuss cooperation. We seek global amity.
We see more and more that Russia is getting entrenched on the continent as well, becoming a member of preference, especially when it comes to issues of security, as we've seen around the Sahel region with some of the numerous countries there that have been, really taken over by the insurgency and Islamist extremism that has been part of that region. And it's not surprising that Naledi Pandor picked this moment to give this interview, because she's always been measured, always been deliberate, and never gives an interview for its own sake.
So now, before we comment on this, I want to replay one more clip, because I want the people to understand exactly where this is going with the dollar decline, America's pressure on South Africa, the influx of terrorism in Africa, and America trying to break Russia's spirit and try to break the alliances that Russia has built. I want them to listen to this 1 minute clip one more time that we played on the previous show. This goes hand in hand with what we just played and read.
So this is life, unfortunately. We cannot change our Western friends and make them polite and behaving democratic way overnight. They are agitated because the dominance which they enjoyed in the world for at least 5 centuries is fading away. Multipolar world is emerging. Powers like China, India, Turkey, Egypt, Africa as a huge, rich continent, and many people say that this is the future of the world, Latin America, of course, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, those powerhouses of their respective regions, and to a large extent for the world economy, as China and India are, you cannot ignore them. And you cannot dictate to them that they should develop the way which will continue to enrich the West.
So, what have you to say on this, especially as he singled out when he said Egypt, and then he said, and most people forget that Egypt is a part of Africa. Most people forget that Egypt is an African nation. Algeria is an African nation. Libya is an African nation. People forget that. But when he says that, many people say that this Africa is the future of power and the future of the world. This comes from Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister who is equivalent to the U.S. Secretary of State. What say you on the matter and the influx of U.S. terrorism and French and European colonialism to the continent?
What it is, as the South African secretary said, first of all, why would you want to alienate Russia when Russia got your oil? Why would you want to alienate Russia when Russia got your aluminum? Why would you want to alienate Russia when she can feed you with her grain and stuff? Help you, right? That's like these European lunatics. Take Russia and I don't want to have nothing to do with it. And in the next minute, you're freezing to death because you ain't got any oil. Their leadership is insane. And what, like the guy for the European Union said, what are we? We are the garden, and everybody else is the jungle. Well, that garden can get pretty cold if you ain't got any oil. No gas, right? It just shows you that these people are insane. And somebody is pushing them, like I say, reeling them in like a fish with a hook to this war that can't be avoided.
Yeah.
Two people are America riding a horse of leadership, and the other people want to ride a horse. It's got to be a war because neither one of them going to capitulate. The old don't want to get out of the way, and the new don't want to accept the old orders no more. So that's what you have. You have a war that's can't be avoided. Mm-hmm. You can't avoid this war because Russia, China, and the rest of them we don't need your money anymore. Mm-hmm. It took America to make them see that they didn't need America's money anymore.
And you know, we talk about as we talked about and we heard on here about the rising poles of power and how America is against that and how all these nations are becoming more and more independent. And you just heard about South Africa. But what people don't realize, you know, when we talk about, excuse me, when we talk about Russia's wheat and Ukraine's wheat and all that stuff, and we talk about a change in global order, what's mixed out of this is something that was just announced today. And it concerns a nation that was destroyed economically by the United States and Great Britain when they sanctioned Mugabe in Zimbabwe, and they destroyed the Zimbabwean dollar because they were mad that he wanted to rectify the ills that happened under colonialism. And they demonized him and vilified him for wanting to right the wrong that was imposed upon his people. And so they before they did it, they called him a freedom fighter. Go look this stuff up. And at the time they sanctioned his nation, right before that, the Zimbabwean dollar was in parity with the US dollar. They destroyed the economy because in Zimbabwe, 90+% of the farmland was owned by 5% of the population. Even though the farms were worked by the indigenous people, the descendants of the colonial people owned most of the arable farmland, and they owned all the banking institutions and all of it. And Mugabe wanted to right the wrong, so the British in the U.S. tried to destroy him. I got to say, because this is very important. The late great Mugabe is gone, but listen to what the announcement comes in. Zimbabwe to start exporting wheat in the middle of a crisis. Now, let me read the first few lines of this. Leaders of more than 20 African countries arrived in Dakar to take part in the second Dakar Summit on Feeding Africa. Food sovereignty and resilience taking place between January 25th to January 27th. Zimbabwe plans to start exporting wheat this year due to its record harvest. President Mnangagwa announced at the second Dakar meeting on food sovereignty and resilience in Senegal's capital. Zimbabwe is well fed and has a significant stock of wheat, which we intend to export. The Zimbabwean news outlet ZimLive quoted the head of state as saying on Thursday. Last year, Zimbabwe harvested 375,000 tons of wheat, which was the largest figure in the history of the country. The Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Water, and Rural Resettlement reported that this volume exceeded the country's domestic needs by 15,000 tons. So even after they said that the land reappropriation would destroy Zimbabwe, we see a decade later that Zimbabwe is now enjoying a record harvest, which means that it is self-sufficient to feed itself. Now, but remember when America and Britain were sanctioning them, the Americans make them eat dirt, right? Well, now, look, go ahead.
Well, first of all, that was after the colonial powers do that. That's their plan for all of it. Same thing with South Africa. We give you the government, but we keep all of the power.
Yeah.
Right? We keep all of the land. We keep all of the banks. We print the currency. We have all of the gold and all of the natural resources. We keep it in the colonial powers' hands. You can be a senator. It's like over here in America, you can be a mayor.
Hey, didn't they do that? Hold on. Didn't they do that to Russia when they thought that Putin was the safe candidate and they didn't think that he would reconstitute Russia as a sovereign, powerful entity? And they even had inside intelligence notes saying that he would be the safest choice, and then realized that Putin was a nationalist and wanted independence for his country.
Yeah. So that's what they always do. You check out all of them so-called African countries. The colonial power still on the land. Ain't that's what the guy in what is that country? On the eastern part of where he said that first they came and we had all of the land, and the colonial powers had the Bible and the gun. And then when it turned around, we got the Bible and they got all of the land. Yeah. Well, that's all of it. That's his modus of operandi around the world. Well, if I can't have a brutal gun and sitting over if I can't have my brutal hand over your neck, then what I'll do is I'll turn around and let a puppet rule, and then he'll do what I want him to do behind the scene. That's perfect example of Egypt.
Yeah.
This guy in Egypt.
No, we got to address that on the show coming up this weekend. We got to address Egypt and Pakistan and all this weekend. We'll leave that for this weekend.
Yeah, all right. But they all puppets, and that's what their purpose is. They put in a man that will do their bidding. And then when they get a man like Mugabe, then he's a terrorist and running around with the hair on fire because he wants to help his people.
Yeah.
Now the same thing with Putin. Putin is a terrorist. Putin, according to the Western media, Putin and outstrip Hitler that's doing the worst thing on the planet. And they demonize, like we said before on the other show, they demonize Hitler left and right, but a lot of the American oligarchs was helping Hitler.
Well, you know, they see that world ending and they're crazy. They're losing their mind. Let's see. Ha! I tell you what, they called Mugabe all kind of great names. And until he crossed them, and they did the same thing with Putin. They thought that he was the safe choice, and they didn't know that Putin had ulterior plans, and he wanted to one by one get rid of the oligarchs, get rid of the bankers who were fleecing the people, and get rid of all those people who had sold Russia up the creek and was moving towards the breakup of the Russian Federation.
Remember, he was in the room when Clinton was down talking Yeltsin.
Yeah.
Even the people in the Clinton administration walked out of the room and just shook their head how he was talking down Yeltsin. And then remember, Putin was in the room. And now Putin is the big man of Russia, and he ain't going for that stuff.
Yeah.
And it started when they killed Gaddafi.
Yeah. So, well, we can even trace it back further when they felt betrayed when they went into Yugoslavia. Remember that?
Until then, Russia would still go along with their dictates.
Yes,
with the no-fly zone in Libya, the sanctioning of North Korea, the sanctioning of Iran. The UN says so. All Russia had to say is no, and they wouldn't have did it.
Right.
Had they veto on it, but they went along with it until they killed Gaddafi, and that was the end of that. Same thing with China. China and Russia said we are no longer going along with the empire and any of her dictates because she don't live up to her agreements, which we knew that they did that. They never did that in the first place. I mean, we could see that they, like I said, just go ask the American Indians, do the white man of America live up to his word?
And remember, ever since they did that to Gaddafi, Russia has intervened. She intervened in Syria. She's intervened in Turkey when they tried to kill Erdogan. They even intervened in Iraq by selling them Panzer air defense systems. And so America, she's feeling the squeeze now. But this is, I continue to tell people, this is the ramification of imperialistic policies. This is that blowback effect. It's to show America and the Western world that they are not the exception to the very base rule of the universe, that any reaction will elicit an equal or greater reaction. They've been doing it so long that they thought they got away with it, and they can do it in perpetuity.
Anybody that's going to sit up there and think that you are the exception to nature is a lunatic. It's somebody that's got a screw loose up there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The law of nature say the law of nature is the same on Earth as it is on Mars, as it is on Jupiter, any of the planets on the universe. They got to follow the laws of nature or the laws that the creator set up. And here this guy is thinking that he is the exception to their, what is it, Nebuchadnezzar? Look at what my hands have bought, right?
I am and there is none other.
Yeah. A madman.
Yeah.
Thinking that his little bitty, he's up under the weather. Whenever a tornado comes around, he got to run just like everybody else.
Everybody else. When
if an earthquake comes in, his buildings fall down like everybody else. Right?
And yet he thinks he's the exception to the rule.
If they have a cold spell, did you see that interview with article I sent where they said over in, I think it's China that
it was the coldest it's ever been.
53 degrees below zero. Now, that ain't no wind chill. That's actual weather.
Yeah.
Something like that happened. It gets so cold that you can't start a truck. You can't start a car. You can't do anything. But remember, I am an exception because I am who I am.
Yeah. And you know, as we're talking about this, it brings to mind the one of the interviews we did with Jim Fetzer. And you remember when Jim Fetzer talked about how America was under this illusion. And then he talked about Russia, and he said the gravy train is over. He was, you know, and he was. Matter of fact, you know what? Let's play that clip here and let the people see. Let's go to that clip real quick.
News to the show.
And there's a lot of other things that are going on, but also Vladimir Putin, the Iranian government, the Chinese government, and a host of the global South nations said that America is agreement incapable. That meaning that she's not, unincapable. Excuse me. It means that she's not capable of honoring her agreements or honoring anything that she signs. And
that's true.
If this, and so being that it's true, how do you think that this looks on the global scene amongst nations that used to fear America, and that nations that used to be allies with America, or nations that are leaning toward China and Russia and the Eastern Bloc? How do you think they will perceive America's lies and treachery against allies and enemies alike?
There's going to be a realignment of nations, I'll tell you right now. Russia and China are being closer, and Iran as well. You got the BRICS nation that have an independent economic system. And Europe is going to become more neutral because they need relations with Russia. They don't need relations with the United States. If Russia is not a threat, they don't need NATO. They don't need the U.S. military to be stationed in Europe. That's all going to come to pass. Our forces are going to be rejected from the European nations now. And the fact that the word of the United States means nothing is going to...
Tell me, what does a closed society have if it's not what they have?
Oh, man.
Let us see, what is a free society?
Man, I'm telling you.
You're free to say what they tell you to do. That's what you're free to say. And if you say anything other than what they don't like, they don't kick you out.
And that's why I immediately, when I saw it, immediately hit the button to try to stop him from saying whatever that the next part. But it was only, listen, we got suspended for that show also, and it was only a 3-second part of the show, and I think that show was like 2 hours. I think they took 3 to 4 seconds of that show and threw us off the air and banned us. As a matter of fact, that show got the channel deleted. The YouTube channel was completely deleted. And what happened was...
So what was the moral of the story? Don't have Jim Fisher on there.
hey, the moral of it is he was saying this. He was saying that the gravy train of America is over. The nations are picking sides, and the sides they are picking is not the side of America in the West. That's what he was saying. But again, I have to say this. I have to inform the people that interview there actually did not just get us suspended. It got the channel wiped away from YouTube. And after a few petitions and going into the law, they finally, after rejecting it twice, they finally came back and said that they would reinstate the channel. And they reinstated the channel, but they deleted about 3 or 4 interviews. So luckily we got all that stuff on Patreon, and we got all that stuff on backup and stuff like that. So if you want to see the entire video, you can go over there to Patreon, patreon.com/the Red Pill Diaries, all one word. Now, in closing, we'd like to say this to you all, and I'm going to say this, and I'll let Rashid say something. Go join all of our platforms on Twitter. I think it's twitter.com _ Red Pill Diary, Red Pill _ Diary, something like that. We're on Rumble, we're on Twitch, we're on Odyssey, and a couple others that I just can't remember right now. So Rashid, I'm gonna let you have the floor before we wrap up. Let's say what you have to say.
As he was saying, that the nations are leaving America. Why would they not leave America when other people can supply their needs?
Yeah.
Like I said, you can get the BRICS and stuff. They got all of the 3 or 4 largest oil producers joining the BRICS with Saudi Arabia. You got Iran, you got Russia, you got Venezuela.
Nigeria.
All of these people, all of these people are on the opposite side of America. But so you're gonna join on to America and be sitting up there where you don't have gas to drive up the street. They got all your gold. China manufactures everything. So I'm going to demonize China and then have nothing into my supermarkets because I want to be allied with America.
But that's what Poland and the rest of them are doing.
Yeah, but that shows you what kind of a brain that the leadership have over there.
Right. That's what
you gonna run Russian gas. We don't want none of that Russian gas. And then you can walk outside, everybody freezing to death. Does that make good sense?
Not at all.
It shows you that the leadership of the Western leadership, they've devolved into madness. We're gonna fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. And then after Ukraine is wiped out, the rest of the little bitty country is going to look and say, "What? Look what happened to him."
Yeah.
How are you going to protect me? If you let him get knocked off, then I guess I'm next. And this is the reason why the empire is fighting so bad. She sees that her hegemony is coming to the end, and she's going to go down fighting. She'd rather destroy the entire world than to get off the horse of leadership.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm not gonna even say anything but our normal salutations to everybody and greetings to everybody, and let them, as we often say, time is the greatest commodity that anyone can have, and this is not forever. So make sure when
that's
you
right,
give your
because
time,
you can never get it back.
And make sure that you get equal or greater value for your time, or you just lost, or you just in loss. So we hope that this show can give you an equal or greater value of your time. And we really appreciate you all listening to us, giving us time, and just hearing the words without looking at what this preconceived notion that they put out there, especially against the Red Pill Diaries, because we've already been told multiple times by people in higher up that, you know, that there is a blackout on us or whatever like that.
And what have we said that's so destabilizing?
So
what have we said to bring down the ire of the great empire on a couple of little guys?
and let them tell it. We have less than 1,000 subscribers, but we know that is just we already know how that plays out, and we know where the subscribers are, and we know how they continue to manipulate the subscribers, and we know how they take them away from us and all of that stuff. We have picture proof and everything. So we're not worried about that. We just worried about getting the truth out to you all, and we thank you for your time, and your energy. That's what makes this platform continue to prosper. And as we go out, remember that we love you, but God would always love you best. Rashid, anything that you have to say before we go?
No. It's said like we said. Stay tuned. Keep your eyes open and watch.
It's gonna get bumpy. We out of here. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Peace.